because I see they're muted. I see 2 people are
Oh,
muted.
wait.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Now we
Yeah.
can, yeah.
Okay. There we go.
Was that a motorcycle? I just put the doc in the chat of this too, the spreadsheet.
He's playing Need for Speed while he does his job.
He's on a jet ski. And then JR's here still?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
Cool.
The Wide Adventures of World.
All right. 3, 2, 1. Hello. Welcome to the Draft Extravaganza version 1.0 of the, I want to say, Purple PTSD and Vikings Territory mock draft, but I believe we are all Purple PTSD guys, so we can just heavily brand that website. I am the owner of purplePTSD.com and VikingsTerritory.com, Joe Johnson. Here with a cadre of amazing football minds to talk maybe a little bit too early about the upcoming draft. We're going to be running through the first round of picks. And I guess I'm here with a bunch of people. Some of the newer writers for Purple PTSD are here. Brad is here. If you want to help me.
Yeah, I can help you, man.
Thank
What's
you.
up? My name is Brad. I am a lifelong Vikings fan, even though very short life. I'm only like 20, but whatever. I am a new writer for Purple PTSD. Have put out a few articles and ready to get started with the #1 overall pick with the Cleveland Browns.
Ooh.
Other guys introduce themselves. It's going to be a real good time. And we're on to JR next, I believe.
Yeah, it sounds about right. What's up, JR?
What's going on? I'm happy to be here. I'm JR Jordan Reid. I go by JR for short. I am, well, not relatively new. I'm kind of seasoned vet now here at Purple PTSD. I also write at Viking Territory. I also have an upstart website that me and some of my other friends started, climbingthepocket.com. I've mainly focused on the draft. I don't really do much with the Vikings in season. I'm more of a draft analyst. And this is our time of year to shine. I'm excited. It's getting closer to the draft, so I'm really excited to do the mock draft here today with you guys.
Yeah, man. And we're psyched to see all your draft stuff, man. It's best in the industry. It's your time to shine. Speaking of shining and times, how's that for a segue?
Jesus.
Who's up next? I'm thinking
It's
it
me.
is Luke. Right? What's up,
What's
man?
up, guys? I'm Luke. I do the Purple Journal with Joe and Joe Oberly when we can wake him up from his naps. I write for Purple PTSD, have for a couple years now. I'm used to be here. You guys go.
And who's up next? Mike?
Yeah, that would
Mr.
be
Mike?
me, Mike. I'm a new writer for Purple PTSD. I only have like 4 or 5 articles or something out. I just put one out saying goodbye to Teddy because I'm still pretty heartbroken about that. Teddy was my dude. But yeah, I'm excited to be here. I'm a big jerk guy, so hopefully I can lend a hand on analysis here.
Awesome. And also gracing us with his presence is Nick Olson, who is also known as World on Reddit, one of the, if not the biggest Minnesota Vikings Redditors out there. What's up, man?
How's it going, guys? Nick, happy to be here. Happy St. Patty's. I'm excited to get this underway. You can follow me at Nicholas J. Olson on Twitter, and I got a long-form Kirk Cousins deep dive up on Vikings Territory right now. If you want to check that out, see what we're getting in our new franchise QB.
Awesome. Well, let's jump right into it. I think Brad has the first pick with the Cleveland Browns, a pick that has gotten a little more interesting this week with all the crazy free agency news. Picking up Tyrod Taylor, looking at what they're going to be doing at the quarterback position. They've obviously amassed a lot of draft capital and just capital in general with that crazy amount of salary cap money that they've had. And they've spent a little bit of it, but what did you what conclusion did you come to, Brad?
Well, they did go get Tyrod Taylor, but that being said, I think the Browns still need a long-term answer at quarterback. And to be honest with you, I think the Browns are in a really great position because if they had a home run with this pick, they're going to own this division. Because, I mean, you look at the teams around them. You got the Steelers. Big Ben's probably not going to last too much longer. They're going to decline. You got the Ravens, who are all right. But you got the Bengals, who are kind of steadily going downhill from their greatness a few years ago. So, the overall pick in our little mock draft, the Cleveland Browns select Josh Allen, quarterback, Wyoming.
Jesus.
Oh, no.
That's all you guys want. I'm a big believer in this
Wow.
I mean,
That's serious, guys.
I just said in the DMs that I can't
You're
trust.
going to make the Jets take him? Well, too bad. He's not there.
No,
He's
I'm
not
going to
there.
make the Jets take him as punishment for that stupid trade they just made. All right. You lock it in? Josh Allen. Let's
Josh
go.
Allen, man.
Wow.
Big believer.
That does sound like the most Cleveland thing they can do. So.
Oh, yeah.
He's got the biggest arm.
Cleveland is going to take
Rocket arm.
the best high ceiling kind of prospect. They always do. And
He looks good in
that's
shorts.
who it is.
That website is... I think we'll link it in the article for this, too, because there's somebody, I forget, the Barstool Sports, I think it was, made a website.
Yeah, part of it.
That is...
Well, yeah, what do you think convinced me to make that pick?
Yeah.
Now I get why you were
quality.
so excited to pick first overall.
Yeah, because I wanted to pick my guy. I go to Colorado State University. I've watched this guy kick my ass for 3 years in a row.
So, who wants to jump in first on that one?
I mean, what can you say? The guy looks good in shorts. You gotta go number one. He's got big hands.
Rocket arm.
He's the kind of guy that if you really were to coach him up properly, I think you could make something out of him. He has a whole bunch of like raw traits that teams love quite a bit. I think it's really hard to do that when accuracy is the thing that needs to be taught. So I think you're putting a huge, huge burden on your coaches. But if the coaches do things correctly, then you're golden.
And it looks like Sean just joined, and I want to thank him for doing that so I don't have to pick, because if you couldn't tell by my introduction, I was flustered by the idea of having to pick for the Colts. So, I don't know if you heard or not, too, Sean, as someone sneaks out of your room. But Brad took Josh Allen with his first pick for the Cleveland Browns. So, if you can hear me, anyway.
You guys hear me?
Yeah.
Hey, Sean.
What's up, man?
What's up, guys?
This isn't necessarily who I'm supposed to pick. I'm just telling you who the Browns are going to pick.
Okay. So,
I could see it happening.
Okay.
I'll be good. I'm serious. I know there's a circle jerk against him, but I don't care. I think he's going to be good. I think the Browns do. He can sit behind now and learn. If Hugh Jackson can't get something out of him, they'll go get someone who can.
And JR, what were your impressions of him on your big board?
He is my 5th ranked quarterback right now. He's a huge project. I mean, he has all the traits that NFL evaluators love, salivate over. He has arm strength. That's one of the biggest things that they look for, as far as mental processing, pocket presence, intangibles. They're just not there for him right now. And that's my biggest question about him. You can't teach accuracy, and everyone likes to blame the surroundings. But if you're such a good prospect, why aren't you able to elevate those guys and get them to perform better than what they did. So that's my biggest problem with Josh Allen. Me personally, I wouldn't touch him before the 3rd round because he's
wow, you guys are laying into me here.
He's such a huge project, but I mean, going 1st overall, that would be a shocker.
How does he do going through his reads? Because admittedly, I haven't really followed the quarterbacks that much.
Very delayed.
What I've seen, he doesn't have time to do it because his line would collapse after 2 seconds, and then he'd scramble to his right and throw a crossbody shot to the end zone. And a lot of times it would work out really well, but
the Brett Favre special.
That was the problem. He had no offensive line at Wyoming.
Nah, he didn't. And I mean that's part of the surrounding cast argument that a lot of people make. But I mean, he relies on rolling to his right a lot, which is very alarming. And you never know what he's going to do when he does roll out to the right. You don't know if he's going to heave it and throw it across his body, if he's going to reverse field like he did against Iowa and just do something horribly bad, or he might throw a touchdown. It's just an ultimate wild card with him.
And who else do you guys realistically think I guess we can start with you, GR. Who did you have penciled in with the Browns? There seem to be so many different options. I don't want to kind of take away from the takes that we're going to have in the next few picks either, but
who do I think they're going to take? I think it's Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold, without question. I think it'd be a huge upset if he wasn't the number 1 overall pick at this point. Why do I say that? They now have a guy in Tyrod Taylor that he can sit behind. Sam Darnold's only 20 years old right now. He's a bit of a hot and cold prospect, and what I mean by that is he'll make some amazing throws, and then he'll come back and he'll follow it up with some terribly bad decisions. But I mean, he's only 20 years old. Mechanics are flawed. Oh, wait.
We'll see.
Let's talk about the baby face.
Sam Darnold's an ugly dude.
Hey, he's got the chin of a winner.
He does. I'll give you that.
I still like hashtag Chinner. I think that's going to take off. If for nothing else, I'll force it down everyone's throat. So, any other final thoughts on that? Since we won't really dwell on every pick, obviously, this much. But Sean, do you have any thoughts on that? Since you're... And you should probably introduce yourself to the audience, too, since we all did quick intros, too.
Hey, what's up, guys? I'm Sean. Cover the news for VikingsTerritory. Born and raised Minnesota. Because I can't see you guys. I just see boxes, so I'm just, talking to myself.
Yeah. We wanted to make it as awkward as possible for you.
Oh, perfect. So yeah, that's a little bit about who I am. So as far as Josh Allen, I think it's an interesting pick. Obviously, he's got a cannon for arm. But I was listening to JR, and I'm kind of with him as far as Sam Darnold. But who knows? That's what's about.
Sam would be my second guy.
Oh, second guy?
Yeah, I'm just a huge Allen believer.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Takes
Go
a
get
team
your guys.
to believe.
So I think, JR, you're up next, right, with the Giants pick?
Yeah, so there's a lot of ways they can go here. They can go running back. They can go Saquon Barkley. But I think Eli Manning is declining right now, and they need to have that guy right behind him. And this guy's the top quarterback on my board, and I think he already made franchise quarterback from the day he steps on the NFL field, and that's Josh Rosen. He's a guy that's picture perfect as a quarterback. Mechanics are great. I think he can step in right away and be an immediate contributor for the Giants. And you talk about surrounding him with a guy like Odell Beckham Jr., Evan Ingram, who is a fantastic weapon. You can find your running back in the second round. We've all seen you can get those guys in later rounds. The league's leading rusher last year was found in the third round. So I don't think they would take Barkley right here just because I think it's too high to prioritize a running back. And I think they need to have that guy behind Eli Manning because I think he only has 2 years left in his contract. And if he continues to decline, they'll have that young piece behind him. And I think Josh Rosen can be that guy.
What if they trade up for Josh Allen? I'm kidding. That was a
pull a Bears.
That was a joke.
I agree.
Give up one spot.
I agree completely with JR on Rosen going number 2. That's where I have him as well. The thing that I see happening more than the Giants picking Rosen, though, is that the Bills are going to jump into number 2 there. That they're going to give the Giants 12 and 22? And then probably like a 3rd rounder and maybe another mid-rounder next year to jump into 2 to leapfrog the Jets.
It'll take way more than that. I seen on Twitter somebody said their asking price is a 1, 2, or 3, a first next year and a mid-round pick. That's their asking price right now.
Huh.
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
Well, the Bills do have that interesting situation where they can throw them 2 firsts this year. You think they do 2 firsts this year in their first?
Well, what I was thinking that they would do if they still had the 21st pick before they made the trade with the Bengals, I was thinking they could probably package both of their first, Cordy Glenn, and maybe another pick. I thought that would be enough to move up to.
And Nick, I was interested in kind of your take on the Giants pick too.
Yeah, I think Rosen's the great familiar with Pat Shurmur's offense. Rosen is a pretty developed QB who can step in and run those kinds of full field reads that Shurmur likes to run. I think he'd be a good successor to Eli, who's also good at that. So I really like the fit. I think Giants would be ecstatic if he was there at 2. Wouldn't be surprised if he went at 1.
And you have to wonder, this is a more general football question. I'll pitch this to Luke as the converted Shurmurite.
Oh boy.
You have to wonder, just kind of with Shurmur, before he left, a lot of the talk was if he ends up in Arizona or if he would bring one of the 3 Vikings free agency quarterbacks with him. How do you feel things are going to work out with him and Eli Manning? I mean, you can't, obviously he couldn't go in there. He's kind of handcuffed to Manning for the next couple of seasons. Do you see him kind of going that way with obviously taking a younger quarterback right away? And
I think it would be smart to. I mean, it's no question that like the Giants are super committed to Eli Manning. Like they really see him as their Joe Montana, their Tom Brady kind of guy. Like they want him to retire there, and they're willing to accept as many years of Eli Manning as they really want. And like they fired Ben McAdoo for benching him for a game. But like he's not getting any younger, so going younger and like having a succession plan is still a good idea. In terms of Pat Shurmur and the scheme he ran here, I don't think the scheme that he ran here is going to work as well with Eli Manning, just because so much of the Vikings production in 2017 came from like improvisational situations that Case Keenum was just really good at running around and finding someone, and Adam Thielen works back toward the ball and suddenly it's a 15-yard pickup. I don't think Eli Manning's quite as good at like improvisation as he once was. So I'm super curious to see what Shurmur comes up with, because he proved that he's willing to be the kind of guy that like adapts and is willing to like change what he calls to suit his players. And I'm super curious to see what the answer to that question is with Eli Manning and Odell and whoever else they have over
there. Yeah. I don't know if that snort was on purpose, but I was also kind of interested to see how that shakes out. Luke, you couldn't have gotten a better pick with the 3rd pick, and I know it sounds like there's quite a few Teddy Bridgewater fans on the show today. But if you guys didn't listen to the most recent episode of the Purple Journal podcast, I am going to buy Luke a Jets Bridgewater jersey that he has to wear to basically every public event for the rest of his life.
I'll do it.
So what are you thinking about Teddy's new team?
It's pretty clear that the Jets aren't like handing the keys to Teddy or anything. I mean, he's getting paid like a tiny base salary. He's got a little more in incentives and stuff, but it's very clear that they are interested in having him compete with as many people as possible, which is smart. They just traded up with the Colts, and they spent a king's ransom to get up to 3, and you don't do that if you're not going for a quarterback. I think that means that there are at least 3 quarterbacks in this draft that they have super high grades on, and they're happy with getting any of those three. Not unlike what the Eagles did with Carson Wentz, right? They were okay with Goff and Wentz, and they were happy with whichever they got. But the Jets haven't had like a real answer franchise quarterback since Broadway Joe, and I'm going to pick the second coming of that guy, Baker Mayfield from Oklahoma.
Oh,
He's the most productive quarterback. Yeah, Darnold is. He could still end up on the Browns. Mayfield seems like just a picture-perfect match for the Jets and the New York. I think his personality is just for what they want. But he's also the most productive quarterback, and I know that has like limited value, but it's still really impressive. He can make any throw you want, and I think he's got a skill set that you can instantly plug and play and have a functioning offense.
And how do you? I think that's interesting. Just from before we get the other guys' takes on that, from a Teddy perspective, do you think that has anything to say? That kind of tells you how much confidence they have in him, or?
I think we already know how much confidence they have.
I think it's pretty apparent how much confidence anybody has in Teddy, just let alone with the Vikings letting him go.
Yeah,
right. The market was non-existent.
You would have thought that maybe they'd wait a year and kind of see how things would shake out, but because when you looked at both the Keenum and the Bradford thing, a lot of it's like the bridge to the future, and who are they going to get behind them to groom? So it's interesting for Teddy, just him stating that he wanted to be a starter somewhere in this year, and then beyond that, obviously that's where he ended up. But that's
he's got to prove himself, and the Jets aren't going to try if they're not taking one of the quarterbacks that they like. You don't do that for an edge rusher.
Yeah. So, JR, what were your thoughts on what Luke had to say?
I'm all for Broadway Baker. I would love it. I think it'd be a great fit on and off the field wise. Those guys need a face of the franchise type of quarterback. We all know the questions surrounding Teddy. Josh McCown isn't going to be there much longer, despite having a productive season last year. And, the Jets just need that highlight player type of guy. And I think Baker Mayfield can bring that to the city or to New York.
Josh McCown, another chinner, by the way. No, that's just gonna be a crazy quarterback room. Think about that. You got 90-year-old Josh McCown, busted knee Bridgewater, Broadway Baker, all in the same quarterback room for a year.
Hard knocks. Let's go.
I'd enjoy that.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool.
And Sean, did you have any takes on that?
I think that's a great fit. He's got the personality that we saw in college. I think the New Yorkers will love that. I think it's a very good match as far as personality and city.
All right, the real question is, would the Jets boo the pick?
Yeah.
We don't say.
Jets are gonna boo the pick, whoever it is.
Right.
At least there's gonna be a few of them. The Browns are gonna cheer whoever it is.
And throw a parade. Who's up next? Is it Mike? You got
I got the Cleveland
Browns again. Yeah.
Which is really interesting.
And it's hard too, just because it's so much of it's contingent on what they do with the first pick, obviously.
Well, we got our quarterback. Got Josh Allen, thanks to Brad.
You could probably just skip this pick.
See, a lot of people.
Well, if you don't like him, you can take Darnold too.
That'd be pretty.
That'd be nuts.
If the Browns took two quarterbacks in the top 5, you got to hit on one of them, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of people would say Saquon here, and I'm really down on running backs, especially taking them in the top 10, let alone in the first round at all. So I'm gonna go with my number 2 on my entire board, and I'm gonna say the Browns are gonna take Bradley Chubb. I think teaming him up with Myles Garrett, that's a defensive end combo that's gonna compare with like the Chargers got with Ingram and Bosa. That's gonna be disruptive for any team they play.
Wow. And Nick, do you want to opine on that?
I would be floored if the Browns took Allen and Chubb. I would expect them to take Nelson or Barkley or QB. I understand not taking a running back, but I think that's an interesting combination. I think they've already got a lot of talent on the D-line. So not that I disagree with the pick, but it would be really interesting if that's how it shaked out on draft day.
See, I wanted to say Nelson as well because he's my number one guy on my board. But who is their other guard? They got Batonio and...
Their guards are pretty good.
That's what I was thinking, is that their offensive line was actually pretty set. I mean, they need a tackle now, obviously, but...
And I see Luke updating the big board. What do you think, Mr. Brown?
I'm definitely with Mike on the don't take a running back thing. There's a lot of evidence that shows that having a running back like Saquon Barkley versus having a running back who's just kind of middle of the road, whoever like a Latavius Murray doesn't have, like, there's the difference between those things is smaller than you think. And I think if you just say, all right, Bradley Chubb is my best non-quarterback available, and you just take the best non-quarterback available, then let's go. I think having Myles Garrett next to him, I've heard people say about Chubb that he would go number 1 overall if this wasn't such a weird quarterback draft. Like in other drafts, he could have, been like a Clowney or a Garrett, where he's an edge rusher that goes number 1 overall. So having 2 of those just like blue chip edge rushers can really help you start to build a defense. I just hope that if they do take Chubb, that Greg Williams doesn't ruin him.
Yeah, and I kind of want to open this up to everybody a little bit differently too, just with the fact that the Browns have those 2 picks in quick succession, and just where they're at as a franchise. And go back to you first, Luke, and then maybe kick it over to JR and Nick also, and everybody. What do you think a team in their position should do? Should they go with a QB and a running back and have those 2 guys kind of develop together? I kind of know what your answer is going to be already based on your, what you guys have said about taking a running back that high. But you look at Barkley as someone that's compared to like an Ezekiel Elliott who could, be your guy for the next 10 seasons. You guys?
I think it's worth going double quarterback. I honestly think it's worth thinking about because it seems super radical, but just considering where the Browns are, and the amount of capital that they have right now, getting your quarterback situation solved and putting yourself in a situation where you have better than like a 20% chance or whatever it is to actually get that solved is so valuable. And that asset doesn't just go to waste if he ends up losing the battle. You still then have like a blue chip quarterback that you drafted that you can trade to somebody else who desperately needs one. We've seen desperation quarterback trades return king's ransoms before. So I don't think that drafting 2 quarterbacks is some sort of wasted redundancy. I think you can't overpay for your franchise quarterback.
Now, I'm going to say I think that's a good idea in theory. My only problem would be that, let's say, just for the sake of argument, what if the Browns take, like we have Josh Allen number 1, and then like they could have taken Sam Darnold at number 4. Darnold might say, hey, I don't want to do this. I'm not going to play for the Browns. You might pull an Eli Manning kind of situation or a John Elway and do something like that. And then you're the one who has no leverage and you have to trade him away for something cheaper. And then that's a bad situation.
I didn't realize how much I wanted exactly that to happen.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, you have to wonder with these guys that are being groomed to be the guy, how much having to go in and immediately compete in that sort of way would, either from their standpoint or just the media and everything too, it'd be crazy. What are your thoughts on that, JR or Nick, whichever wants to?
I think it's a bit redundant if they were to do that because you're not going to be able to find reps. for both of those guys to prove, who is the guy. And yes, you're getting picks back if one of them doesn't turn out, or if one does turn out and then one turns into an asset. But I just feel like it's a waste, and you don't know if one of those picks will end up being as high like you currently have in the top 5 pick. On the subject of going back to the Bradley Chubb pick, I actually love that because we all seen the new trend in the NFL now is the rotation on the defensive line and keeping those guys fresh. So now you have Bradley Chubb, you have Myles Garrett, and the forgotten guy on their defensive line is Emmanuel Ogbah, who also is a really good player. So you're rotating those 3 guys in and out, and I think that would be a fantastic pick.
They also have, isn't it Carl Nassib? He's pretty good as well.
Yeah, he's pretty good.
Who's up next? It's sorry, we're recording my screen, so I don't want to keep the big board up too long. It's Nick with the Broncos. That's what I thought.
Well,
Nick, I got a trade for you.
Okay, I'm listening.
Got a trade offer. Steve Keim, GM of the Arizona Cardinals, would love to trade you pick number 15, a 3rd rounder this year, and next year's first to move up to number 5.
That's not going to be enough.
We'll throw next year's 3rd. So you're getting this one, next year's 1, and 2 3s.
No, you're not even close.
Got to throw in David Putney.
Honestly, with the way this is shaking out, I don't think I'm taking trades. I think I'm running to the podium, and I think I'm taking my number 1 on my big board, Sam Darnold.
Ooh.
And I would love to take Nelson. I salivate over taking Nelson, and Saquon Barkley's another option here too. But Darnold is just reminds me of Andrew Luck. Not the same caliber of talent, but just the arm, the poise, the pocket presence, the vision. He's got some decision-making struggles, same way Luck did, but we saw with Luck in 2015 how he ironed those out. So I just think this is nothing's a sure thing in the draft, but getting a guy like Darnold would be absolute dream scenario. So that's my pick. And if I've got an Andrew Luck in the draft, I'm not trading him for anything. So
fair enough.
Just all the disrespect of the ex-Viking quarterback.
Yeah.
They're desperate.
I like Case Keenum. I think, if you want to have a competition in camp, that would be something you could do. And I think Keenum was a great choice for Denver to sign as well. But, when you get a chance to get a prospect like Darnold, you run to the podium with that.
Yeah, no, I think Darnold is the obvious pick here. Broncos do need a quarterback. I know they have Case, but to be honest with you, I don't think he's as good of a fit with them as he was with us. I know Elway likes guys like that. He was that highly touted prospect, and word is he really likes Mayfield, but if Darnold somehow fell to him, I think he'd really love to have him too.
And how much stock do you guys put into, they're coming out and saying that Keenum was their guy the whole time. And maybe they meant that from just being priced out of the market. The way they're trying to spin it basically is that they wanted him over Kirk Cousins, without money being considered, just from a fit perspective. And do you guys think that's just, typical nonsense from him? Or
I think it's GM speak, but I do think there's a lot of truth to it too. Obviously, I think a lot of people would rather take Kirk Cousins. I'm not as high on Kirk Cousins as a lot of people, but I still think Cousins is a better quarterback than Keenum in a vacuum. But Elway's not seeing his team in a vacuum. He's seeing a team with a lot of holes on the O-line, but a lot of talent at the receiver position. Keenum's a quarterback who can make your offensive line look a lot better than they are. We saw this year he was, I think, second in the NFL in pressure conversion rate. So when he was pressured, very, very often he managed to avoid sacks and come up with big plays. So he's a great fit there because he can elevate their offensive line, but his arm talent is lacking. He doesn't have the strength or the accuracy to to rely on. So, but that's where his receivers can come in handy. I know Sanders is a great receiver, can get open and has a large catch radius, and Demaryius Thomas is also great at the catch point. So, I think in a vacuum, maybe Elway would have wanted Cousins, but I think given the price point and everything else and the team he's building around, I think Keenum makes perfect sense there.
Sean, you're up next. Got
all right.
The coaching job no one seems to want. In the Colts.
I have the Indianapolis Colts at number 6. We obviously saw Josh McDaniels back out of the head coaching job, but they now do have a head coach, and the way this draft is playing out, I honestly think in real life they would trade down, but with a guy like Saquon Barkley out there, I think that's a good place to start for the Colts. They need to put fans in the stands, especially with who knows what's happening with Luck right now. So if he's able to come back, he's got a guy to hand the ball to, and the guy just crushed the combine. So I like Saquon Barkley, number 6, the Colts.
Ooh.
And they do have a guy named Marlon Mack. I realize that, but with a lot of guys or a lot of teams going with a 2-guy rotation, that's pretty lethal right there.
Marlon Mack isn't even as close to the level of Saquon Barkley is either.
Oh, agreed.
And JR, what is your take on Barkley?
Yeah, I like him a lot. I believe he's my number 2 ranked prospect after Quentin Nelson on my big board. I mean, he's the ultimate weapon. He's your modern-day running back. He's a threat as a runner and as a pass catcher, which is required for a guy to be a 3-down back in today's NFL. There is some vision questions about him as far as seeing things between the tackles and maximizing yardage when things really aren't there. That's the biggest question about him right now. But, of course, he can be an instant impact type of rusher and a guy that can be, like a Le'Veon Bell type of running back for an NFL franchise.
And, Luke, you've been you kind of put this out there a little bit too, talking about your thoughts on when and where to draft running backs in the NFL and how there's not much of a difference between a high-level, blue-chip guy and maybe someone you could get later. If you wanted to kind of flesh that out a little bit.
Yeah, I can flesh out the reasons for that, but they're mostly rooted in analytics and historically how teams have done when they have really good running backs versus mediocre running backs. And the Colts have been very vocally against that sort of thought process, so it makes a lot of sense that they would take Barkley if they fell to him at 6. I think essentially, no matter how you measure how good your running back is, whether you want to use something like PFF grades or you want to use something like athletic profiles, all of the drills in the combine have almost no bearing on career yards per carry or career yards after contact or anything. It doesn't matter how you want to measure rushing success and how you want to measure how good the actual running back input is. Nothing you can do finds any sort of correlation. It's all super, super, super weak correlation. And the reason for that is kind of obvious, right? The blocking matters more. It doesn't matter who your running back is if there's 2 guys coming at him right away. And it doesn't matter who your running back is if there's a gaping hole. Any running back can run through a gaping hole if your offensive line opens it up. Running backs do have a fair amount of equity when used as receivers. And that's really where their value tends to fluctuate. And Saquon Barkley I'm pretty sure he's the best receiving back in the class as well as the best true runner in the class. So he's still the best pick here. And all of the analytic reasons why drafting running backs high is probably bad is not something that the Colts are going to be listening to. So I can totally see him doing it.
Awesome. Who's up next? Is it Brad? We're back to the top of the order.
Yep, we're all the way back around.
With Tampa.
Yeah, if I'm Tampa, I am so happy right now because the top player on my board just fell to me based on 4 quarterbacks getting taken in front of me. And if I'm Tampa, I got Jameis Winston. I'm not looking to draft a quarterback. What I am looking to do is make my offensive line better, and that's why I'm taking Quentin Nelson, the guard from Notre Dame, who I believe is the best overall player in this draft. And a no-brainer for Tampa, in my opinion. They don't have the best offensive line. especially on the interior. This guy could come in right away and make their team better. He is just absolutely strong. Not the best guy running around in space, but that's okay. He can do a lot of things really well. He's a great pass protector, really good power run blocker, and I think he'd be a great addition to that team.
There's really no arguing against Quentin Nelson. You've all seen his combine numbers. You've watched the tape. The guy is just an absolute mauler, and I think I've heard at least 4 of us now with Brad say that he was our number 1 player on the board. It's just hard to justify taking him in like the top 5, and with all the quarterback needy teams, he's gonna slip down to this, and it's gonna be a huge grab for somebody.
I think Justice Mosqueda's comp for Quentin Nelson was Bane.
What did you want to add to that, JR, too? I mean, just kind of what your take is on him.
I mean, he's fantastic. The most common comp for him so far has been Larry Allen. So that speaks to the volumes of just how good he can be. And, I mean, he's an instant impact type player and a guy that can be a tone setter on the offensive line.
Any other arguments out there? Or anything anyone wants to add? Seems to be a pretty high consensus pick.
It's unanimous. The fact that Quentin Nelson fell to 7, yeah. If I'm them, I'm jumping for joy. I'm sprinting to the podium.
I mean, there's a small argument out there that they would look at like Minkah Fitzpatrick with their defensive back needs, or possibly Derwin James if he impressed them enough at the combine with his incredible scores. But with all the help the Buccaneers need, Quentin Nelson just makes too much sense.
And like you said, Brad, do you guys think that with the needs that the top 5 teams, or I guess the top 4 teams have at the QB position, do you think that he will end up falling out of the top 5?
I can't say for sure, especially with trades and such. We don't know exactly what will happen. I think it definitely could happen. I've seen a lot of people mock him to Tampa at 7. That would be a dream scenario for Tampa because, of course, there's the age-old argument, best player available versus position of need. Well, he's both for them, and I just think this pick would be a no-brainer. If he is there at 7, I'm telling you he's not getting past 7. So there's that.
Next up is JR with Chicago.
Yeah, so if you think about it, with the Bears, it's a franchise known for having a ferocious interior defense. And you think about guys like Mike Ditka, Mike Singletary, they've always had that linebacker who's been like the staple of their defense. So they have Danny Trevathan there right now, but of course he's not that guy that you think of on their defense. So they need a guy that can be a tone setter. And I'm going to take Roquan Smith right here. I think he'd be a fantastic fit for him, a plug-and-play type of linebacker. And he was the leader of that Georgia defense this past season. They almost won the national championship against Alabama. And he just brings a different phenomenon for them. And he brings a star in the middle of their defense that they're known for.
Nick, do you have any sass on that one? Some hot juicy takes? Spicy? Is that a no? Did you leave?
No, sorry, I had my mic off. No, I don't have anything spicy for you. I think it's a great pick, great value, great need. So,
but Luke, or
be interesting to see where he how that Bears defense would shake up if they had Roquan Smith, and we don't really know how healthy Leonard Floyd can stay, and they've got a whole bunch of really interesting pieces on that defense. I really like how the Bears defense is shaped up over the last couple of years.
I think Leonard Floyd. Yep. I'll go real quick. I think Leonard Floyd is a good thing to bring up too. He's another young linebacker on the team, coincidentally also from Georgia. And I really think Vic Fangio could get really good value out of these two. Roquan Smith would probably be my pick here too if I were drafting. So kudos to you, JR. I think he's perfect for the Bears, to be honest with you.
Are the Bears for sure losing Kyle Fuller, or can they still match the Packers offer? I'm a little foggy on how the transition tag works.
They did match.
I think they already did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was gonna say that's the only other argument I could come up with is that they would need a defensive back then, but yeah.
And just a more general question: where do you think the Bears are in terms of their defense and getting back and competing?
Honestly, the Bears scare me more as a Viking fan than the Packers do next year. If Trubisky can put it together, they've proven they can run the ball. They got a decent offensive lineman. They've brought in a legion of wide receivers. I mean, if Trubisky can put it together and lead that team, I could definitely see them sneaking in as a wild card next year.
I agree.
They definitely have the potential. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, they remind me a lot of. I think their strategy right now is very similar to what the Rams and Eagles did last year. They made a big splash in free agency to help support their young quarterback. And we saw Goff and Wentz, they both put it together in year 2. If Trubisky does that, I agree with you. I'm a little bit scared of the Bears.
Well, and they have an actual coach now, too, so that helps.
College-style offense, baby. Let's bring it to the NFL.
And what a good free agency for them, too. You know, to bring in Allen Robinson, Trey Burton, Taylor Gabriel.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good haul for them. They've got some legit pieces on offense, and adding a guy like Roquan Smith, that makes me scared as a Vikings fan a little bit.
What's the deal with Kevin White? Is he ever gonna play football?
I think he's dead.
Did he die of natural causes?
I liked JR. I like what you said about him on this last climbing the pocket about how he's pretty much you just if you're the Bears, you just cannot count him as part of the equation. If he comes back, that's great, that's gravy. But right now, you're building your team as if he does not exist.
Yeah, just treat him as if he's a ghost right now, and anything you get out of him is an asset at this point. In my opinion, he was never really good. He was in a system that inflated his stats, and he ran a bunch of tunnel screens and a lot of short routes where he got a lot of yards after the catch. He was never a really true route runner, and his hands weren't very reliable. And then he dropped a 4.5. I mean, a 4.3 at the combine. And, you know, scouts are really gonna salivate over that. So, and he's battled the injury bug, obviously, but anything they get out of him at this point should be seen as a plus.
On a little bit of a side note, did you guys see the Schefter? I think it was Schefter picture that he tweeted out of Kevin White.
No. Yeah. Yeah,
Dude,
he was hiking in South America or something like that.
Yeah, it looked like David Boston all over again. That guy looked so freaking roided out. It was crazy.
I think it was Rappaport, but still. Yeah, he ran into his family somewhere, and Dad sent him that picture.
Which is also weird to begin with.
I thought it was kind of weird, yeah.
Luke, you're up next, right?
Yeah, I am thanking my lucky stars if I'm John Lynch that Minkah Fitzpatrick fell to me. They're still building. They've got a lot of young superstar pieces on that defense with Solomon Thomas and Reuben Foster and DeForest Buckner. They've got all kinds of unbelievable pieces, but they did just lose Eric Reid to free agency. They don't appear too interested in signing him back. And Minkah Fitzpatrick, basically the ideal free safety in that he can take away huge chunks of the field and make life a lot easier on your cornerbacks. Not dissimilar to the way Harrison Smith affects the Vikings. He makes it so that basically the Vikings cornerbacks can commit to guarding the sideline and use the sideline to their advantage. It really just elevates everybody around you. So I'm taking Minkah Fitzpatrick. I'm sprinting to the podium. I'm not even here in trade offers. The 49ers would be thrilled with this.
Sean, you got any
I like San Francisco. I like what they've done. I really am a big Jimmy Garoppolo fan, have been since he came out of Eastern Illinois. And now adding McKinnon. I don't know a whole lot about their defense. It sounds like they've got some pretty good guys, but I'm putting San Francisco kind of up there with Chicago as far as teams on the rise that you need to really pay attention to in the NFC.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they can keep up the momentum they had. They added Richard Sherman.
Oh yeah.
I think the NFC is going to be completely different this year, and it's going to be super competitive. So that's always been my line of reasoning with the Kirk Cousins thing is there's just going to be so much more crap the Vikings are going to have to deal with this year. But do you guys really, I'm going to lob this softball up for anybody. In terms of Garoppolo, do you think that was just like the best timing for him to get that huge contract, and it's not necessarily like a sustainable 14-2 Garoppolo-led MVP type 2018, or do you think that he's that good? JR
I think he's
or
good.
Nick or Brad or Mike, or I'll just go down the list of everyone on the team. Or Joe. Was that Brad or Mike?
That was me. I think he's good. I think he's got his flaws like any quarterback does, but I think it was worth the contract. I think he's a franchise quarterback, and when you find one of those, you can overpay a little bit. I don't have a problem with that. And Kyle Shanahan's going to get the best out of him. We've seen him do that time and time again. So I have no problem with that contract.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I think he's a talented quarterback. I think he struggles sometimes with his deep accuracy, but he's did excellent at executing Shanahan's offense. And you worry a little bit about the sample size, but the alternative is letting him walk, and you're not going to let that do it with you're not going to do that with a talent like him. So makes sense from my perspective.
And it could be nice to see the Patriots on the other end of a really bad trade. If things, not to say that they could have gotten more for him, but I would just love
They could
have or couldn't have.
They could have if they traded him earlier, for sure.
Yeah.
People were offering 2 firsts at one point.
It's like Belichick specifically didn't want to trade him to the Browns.
I don't think he did. I think he really likes him. I don't think he wanted to give him that fate.
Yeah.
Let's see here. I know it's Mike and Oakland, I believe, right?
That is correct. And looking at what's been picked here, Luke was thinking his lucky stars Minkah fell to the 49ers. The Raiders would be cursing him for that. So, looking at the Raiders team, it's clear they need a lot of defensive help. They need to put things together on offense. They have the talent to do so. So we're going to look defensively, and I think I'm going to go the guy that lit the combine on fire. We're going to go with Derwin James, safety from Florida State. I think he's going to be a really good fit for them because they can bump him outside, bump him in the slot. He's fast, he's strong. He finished top 5 in his position in all of his combine drills. I think he can be a real bolster to their defensive backs. Do they still have Reggie Nelson? Is he still around?
I think so.
Yeah,
I will
he's
look
still
that
there.
up real fast.
Either way, the dude's like 36. This would be an excellent replacement for him, and put him next to Carl Joseph. Have Derwin James play that center field position, and Joseph play kind of the Harrison Smith. I think it'd be a really good fit for the Raiders.
The Raiders got a lot older in free agency on defense. So adding a young combine star piece is kind of old. It's a little bit of an Al Davis pick. Pick the combine warrior, but I think it's important for them to add a few young pieces because right now they don't seem to have any semblance of a future on defense because they picked up a lot of older players and I mean Jordy Nelson and stuff too.
Yeah, I mean, there's other players that would fit nicely with them. Some offensive linemen, some edge rusher. They don't really need edge rush though. I think Derwin James gives them the best value at this. Otherwise, anything else is really going to be seen as a reach. They could possibly go like Denzel Ward if they want a true cornerback, or Jair Alexander even. But I think it'd be too high for him.
What do you think, JR?
There's a lot of ways that Oakland could go with this pick. I like the Derwin James pick. They're starting to stockpile some safeties a bit. They do need to replace Reggie Nelson because he is getting a bit long in the tooth. He's a little older. But last year they took Obi Melifonwu, who was another safety. I think they're going to transition him to linebacker, though. But you pair Derwin James with Reggie Nelson, and I think that'd be a terrific pairing on the back end of their defense.
And I think the Dolphins are up next with Nick.
I got a trade for you again, Nick.
No. Thorn in his side.
I will, as the Cardinals, offer you a 1 this year, a 1 next year, and a 4 this year to trade up.
So you're giving me the 15 next year's 1 and a 4th rounder?
Yes.
I'll accept that. Move down 4 spots, sure.
Let's do it.
Wow. King's ransom.
That's a lot for 4 spots.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
The Cardinals are desperate, and they need a quarterback, and there's only one quarterback left in this draft that shows any ability to be like a first-round kind of guy. There's still Mason Rudolph and a couple other guys there.
Picking Mike White, huh?
But they are trading up to get to keep Lamar Jackson a Cardinal.
Oh, wow.
They really need a future at the position. And with Sam Bradford there, Sam Bradford passed his physical. You would imagine that he has some time to be the guy. And I believe in Lamar Jackson's skill set. I believe that running gives you a floor, meaning that, if a play breaks down, if you have a quarterback who can run, usually you can at least get a few yards out of it. And that's pretty valuable. I think he's got the mental processing. I think he played in a pro-style offense. He still has some accuracy issues and some things to work out. And I think that with Sam Bradford, if Sam Bradford can stay alive, and you've got, I believe Mike Glennon is there as well, so you don't have any urgency to put him out immediately, but he gives you an unbelievable ceiling. It's an upside pick, and I think if Lamar Jackson ended up going in front of them, I think Arizona would be hurting real bad. It's time for them to draft a quarterback. They haven't done so since, I believe, Matt Leinart.
Oh, wow. Yeah, he's an interesting one just because of some of the stuff from Combine with, I don't know if it was multiple teams or a team wanted him to run some wide receiver routes. So I'm just kind of interested in your guys' takes on that. I mean, do you think that was like an unfair thing for them to ask of a guy of his caliber? Or, I mean, is there any realistic situation where he turns into a Terrell Pryor, or maybe a better comparison would be the Cordero Stewart? Or is that just, yeah, I mean, what do you guys think?
I think he can be a successful quarterback in the NFL, but if for whatever reason he isn't, he could be a really good wide receiver too. So I think that's a good fallback plan for him, honestly.
How big is he?
He's pretty tall. He's like 6'3".
Okay.
He's like 6'3", 215 or something like that.
He has the measurables to be a wide receiver, but he's never done it in his life. So I'd be super hesitant if I had Lamar Jackson to try to move. Like if I'm asking a quarterback to play wide receiver for the first ever, it's a guy that like Joe Webb, who I drafted in the 6th. I'm not doing that with a guy who I had to just trade up for. He's the future now.
Joe Webb. I love Joe Webb, and he eked out a decent career for a guy.
He's carved himself a little spot. I like it.
Where did Pryor get drafted? He was a late round guy too, or like 4th round maybe? Not super
Oakland,
late round.
I think. I think he started.
No, I meant what round?
Wasn't he?
I thought he was like a 4th rounder, but I don't know.
He's a supplemental draft pick, wasn't he?
Yeah, you're right. I think that is what it was.
The third round of the 2011 supplemental draft.
Okay. So yeah, don't really want to ask your first round draft pick to be doing that, but
to do play a position he's never played before, that just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. If you don't think Lamar Jackson should be a quarterback, I don't think that you're going to really have him on your board.
And what are your thoughts on that pick, Nick, since you kind of lost your spot? Or you can talk about...
Well, I'm ecstatic to get that kind of draft capital to just move down a few spots. I had my eye on somebody, but I think he might still be there at 15, and I am more than happy to get that trade. As far as Lamar Jackson goes, I don't know. Accuracy is an issue with him, and I think it's very hard to succeed in the NFL without good accuracy. As far as I'm concerned, when evaluating QBs, it's been my number one trait that I look at. Is can they get the ball to their receivers, place it well? But the quarterbacks that do succeed despite their accuracy usually have something else to make up for it, and I think Jackson does have that. So I think it makes a lot of sense for the Cardinals. I understand them moving up. We see every year that people give a lot of draft capital to go get their quarterback, so I think it makes a lot of sense.
Cool. And Sean, you're up next with Buffalo.
Yeah, I don't like that trade one bit if I'm Buffalo. So, weighing my options, I think a trade down could be a possibility here. But since I'm not hearing any offers at the moment, I'm going to take one of the best available on the board in linebacker Tremaine Edmunds. Buffalo's in need of a linebacker. They're obviously great at developing defensive talent, and I think he's a pretty good fit.
JR, where do you have him on your board in terms of linebackers?
He's my number 2 linebacker behind Roquan Smith. Very intriguing prospect. He's your Anthony Barr type of linebacker, a guy that can be that Sam linebacker, but also be an edge rusher as well. Very young, only 19 years old, so he's a young prospect, a guy that you can spend a lot of time with, and I hope to see some fantastic end results with him. But he's going to have some rough patches early on in his career just because he's so young and so new to the position. I think he has tremendous upside, probably the most upside of any draft pick in this entire draft.
Luke?
Yeah, I agree with what JR said in terms of the rawness. There's actually a really good video on Tremaine Edmunds by Brett Coleman, who makes awesome draft content this time of year, awesome content year-round, honestly, about how he has the tools to be just an unbelievable first-ballot Hall of Fame caliber type of player if he can, grow up properly. But he's a puppy. He's 19, 20. So you kind of have to be okay with getting a little bit of a delayed return, but that return should probably be worth it. So I think picking him at where did the Bills get him at 12? He's probably better than 12th best in the draft, I would say. I think he's probably you're probably getting good value here by picking Tremaine Edmunds and continuing to build up that defense that's really starting to get some pieces put together.
Definitely. And
really sucks to be the Bills, though, because they just got leapt over for this morning by the Jets. I think the Bills were probably targeting that trade that the Jets just made. And then they just got leapfrogged by the Cardinals as well, which really, really sucks because now they're sitting there with A.J. McCarron as their only quarterback, and that is a rough situation.
Yeah. When he was one of the guys floated out there as the backup plan for the Vikings. I was thinking it's going to be a rough 2018 if I'm sitting down on Monday morning talking about a 10-7 loss with A.J. McCarron for the Vikings. Mike or Brad, did you have any final thoughts on that pick, or should we hop into who do we got next? Brad, right? With the Skins, Kirk Cousins' former team.
Yeah, well, I'm actually kind of sad that Tremaine Edmunds just went. I thought that would be a good fit for the Skins. They could use another good linebacker. But, yeah, they just ended up with Alex Smith, as we all know, because it got us our new face of the franchise, Kirk Cousins.
Hooray.
So, With them, I'm going to look to strengthen the other side of the ball. And that's why I'm going to go with a guy that I really like, and that's Marcus Davenport, defensive end out of UTSA. He's a real good guy, can get pressure off the edge. He's pretty solid against the run, and I think he'd just be a guy who can really help out the Skins long term. They don't really have one of those types of players that can consistently generate pressure for them, so I really think this would be a good addition.
Who wants to take that one first? Is Luke? Or Sean? Or Nick?
I was definitely updating the doc and definitely missed who that pick was. Who did you pick?
Marcus Davenport.
Oh, Marcus Davenport. Yeah, he's I don't know a lot about him, but I know he's
small school, great player.
Yeah, he's a little controversial because of the whole small school pedigree thing, right?
Well, that, and he's kind of an edge rusher only. He plays as a linebacker, kind of 3-4 style, but he's probably going to get moved to defensive end going into the league. That's how I would see it turning out. I'm not sure who the Redskins even have at defensive end, which says plenty about that position for them. Davenport would be a good fit. Looking at the Tremaine Edmonds pick, if the Bills didn't take him in that spot right there, Tremaine Edmonds really fits the next 4 or 5 selections there, so everybody would kind of be scrambling. I think Davenport fits well. He'd give them an extra boost, I guess you'd say, on the edge rushing, because their pass rush has not been that good lately.
JR, I think you are up with the Packers pick, correct?
Yeah. So the Packers need some help in the back end of their defense on the secondary, and they also need an edge rusher. Marcus Davenport would have been a great pick here, but obviously the Redskins snatched him up. The Packers are primarily a zone coverage team as opposed to a man coverage team, so a guy that I think would be a fantastic option for them is Joshua Jackson from Iowa. I think he would be a great pick for him. They traded Demarius Randall to the Browns, so obviously they have a hole at corner right now, and obviously their secondary has been one of the biggest weak points on their team for a number of years. So Josh Jackson provides them with a guy on the edge of their defense in the secondary. I think can be a plug-and-play option.
What do you think about that, Luke?
Yeah, I don't think the Packers have an option. They have to go secondary. They're so depleted there. They lost Sam Shields. They lost Demarius Randall. They have a huge hole in the secondary, and I think it's one of my biggest criticisms of the way that the Packers run their franchise is how often they let valuable assets just kind of leave. So
do you think that's going to change now with Ted Thompson?
Guess not.
Yeah, that's kind of where my thinking was. It's like
you would think. They've gone after people in free agency, which is a change, but it still seems. They apparently had some internal issues with Demarius Randall, so maybe they let him go because they don't value him as highly as maybe he proves on the field. But yeah, Josh Jackson's a great choice, and I think they have to go somewhere like that. They should be happy that they got. Well, Guess is the second or third best member of the secondary on their board.
And
yeah,
Sean,
the only guy I got over Josh Jackson is Denzel Ward, but scheme fit doesn't really work there, so I would definitely agree with Josh Jackson going to the Packers there.
And I just wanted to see if Sean had any input
No,
on that one.
I completely agree with that pick. I think he's a good fit for the Packers, and he'd be a good it'd be an interesting matchup between him and Cousins 2 times a year.
And we kind of delved into this a little bit earlier in regards to the Bears and how they stack up in the division. Do you guys, I always try to see, figure out how much my bias is kind of creating my point of view on this. But, are the Packers... I wrote an article the other day about the odds, Vikings Super Bowl odds before and after the Kirk Cousins move, and we are now tied with the Packers. Previously, we had lower odds than than they did. It just seems like, granted, Aaron Rodgers is going to be back, but it seems like they just have so many openings to fill. I mean, do you guys genuinely fear them in the division at that level?
No.
All right, let's move on.
I think with the Packers, there's just way too many ifs.
Yeah.
I mean, they brought in, hopefully for them, a better defensive coordinator. But there's just way too many ifs in that secondary. I mean, Mo Wilkerson could be a great add-in if he actually plays to his potential. There's just way too many ifs on that defense for me to be too scared of them.
Aaron Rodgers has covered up a lot of very, very bad team management mistakes over the last 10 years. I don't see any reason why he won't continue to cover up those mistakes. And they'll be a contender as long as Aaron Rodgers is on that team. He's taken much worse rosters to the playoffs. I mean, Jimmy Graham is, I guess, a good add, but it still seems like it's going to be, the team's going to go as far as Aaron Rodgers can take them on his own, which is pretty far. He's Aaron Rodgers.
And I think that was Nick. Said you kind of agreed with that.
Yeah, I think Packers might have some holes on their roster, but they also have some truly blue chip players. I think David Bakhtiari is the best pass protector in the NFL. I think Aaron Rodgers is the best quarterback in the NFL, and he does things that nobody else can do. He's a bona fide MVP candidate every year he's healthy. And if you have an MVP candidate on your roster, then you're a playoff contender. I think that defensive line is terrifying. Mike Daniels and Mo Wilkerson, and they got a lot of guys there. And Devontae Adams, I think, has emerged as a truly borderline top 10, if not top 10 wide receiver. So yeah, that scares me. And then I had to throw in Jimmy Graham. Aaron Rodgers to Jimmy Graham in the red zone, I think that's going to be terrifying. So I wouldn't sleep on them.
It's going to be hard to cover him. What is he, 6'7"? Nick, you're up, though, with the traded pick.
Yeah, and I am sitting happy because I'm going to take the same guy that I was going to take before, except now I got an extra first rounder and a fourth. So I'm happy with how this draft day is going. I'm going to take Vita Vea. Just let Ndamukong Suh go walk, and now I get a defensive tackle who flashes that same kind of elite defensive tackle play. I think there's some concern about a 350-pound dude who might not be able to play all the snaps on defense, but Vikings fans are familiar with just how important Linval Joseph is to the scheme. And I think with Vea, you're getting a Don Terry Poe kind of nose tackle who can anchor, but who can also collapse the pocket, pressure the quarterback. So I think he has the potential to really take that defense to another level and open up a lot of things for the rest of that scheme.
Awesome. JR, where's he at on your?
He's a top 20. He's a top 20 player for me. I think Vita Vea is a really good player. More of a run stuffing guy as opposed to a dominant pass rusher, but he's a guy that's a very dominant run stopper. He can two gap or he can one gap, meaning he can play the nose tackle in a 3-4, or he can play a shade in a 4 down front. So he brings a lot of value. The biggest question is, can he be a 3rd down contributor as a pass rusher? That's why I have a little bit of pause by taking him in the first round, but he still has value at the top of the draft because of how dominant he is as a run defender.
Awesome. Mike.
Yeah, we got the Baltimore
Ravens.
16 here, and kind of cuts the draft in half because they really are still stacked defensively. You could look at maybe an edge rusher if Tremaine Edmonds fell to this. That would be a dream to replace Terrell Suggs eventually with him. But really going to be looking offensively here. I mean, looking at their roster, the only offensive lineman position that they really need would be a guard. I don't like taking like a Billy Price or Will Hernandez this early. I think with how this draft has kind of shook out here that the Ravens are really going to look at Calvin Ridley from Alabama here and take him at number 16. They brought in Crabtree and who's that Cardinals receiver? John Brown. I don't really believe in either of them. Crabtree seemed to have fallen off quite a bit last year. John Brown is really hit or miss. Have they brought back Mike Wallace? I mean, even if they did, that's not a huge contribution to their offense. They got Alex Collins at running back, so I wouldn't go Darius Geis. I think Calvin Ridley makes the most sense here.
Anybody got any disagreements to
The
that?
Ravens sure have a storied history in terms of drafting wide receivers. So if I was a fan, I would be shaking in my boots if they took Calvin Ridley just because of the history. Regardless of whether or not you think Ridley is a good prospect or not, or is the prospect he's supposed to be. But I mean, they've had all kinds of catastrophic failures at the position. It would be a huge deal for them to hit on it. Their offensive supporting cast has not been very kind to Flacco, as much as I've ribbed on Flacco over the entire time that I've been podcasting with you, Joe. they have not given him a lot of help anyway. So it would be really nice to get a blue chip weapon, a guy like AJ Green that can just make him look a little bit more like the franchise quarterback you're paying him to be.
Yeah. Nick, do you got anything you want to add, or JR?
I mean, I think Ridley is obviously a huge need. The Brashad Perryman experiment has went off the rails. I think that's considered a epic failure at this point.
Their own form of Kevin White right there.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, bringing in wide receiver talent for Joe Flacco, which he desperately needs at this point, I think Ridley is a guy that can thrive opposite of a guy like Michael Crabtree. So I think it would be a really good pick.
Nick is up again with the Chargers.
Yeah, and I really like the Chargers roster. I think they have a lot of ascending talent, so I think there's a lot of different ways they could go there. I would consider trading down as well, but I think I'm going to go with Mike McGlinchey from Notre Dame. I think I have some concerns about the tackles, and I think if you can get the best tackle in the class at the 17th pick, you're doing pretty well. I know he's done really well in pass protection and run support, so I think you're getting one of the most valuable positions in the field, the offensive tackle number 1 down at 17. So I just think it's a good value pick.
Definitely. Luke?
Yeah, I love Mike McGlinchey. I think that's a great value pick for the Chargers. They have an incredibly young offensive line now. They took 2 of the better offensive linemen in the draft last year with Forrest Lamp and Dan Feeney. And now they go dip right back in. They will have a very young offensive line that should hopefully stay together for a long time. And that should make it so that you can maybe make one final push with Phillip Rivers, but you're also set up whenever you decide to get his succession plan going, you're also to develop that person behind a nice line. So I really, really like the pick of Mike McGlinchey at that spot.
And where's he at on your board, JR?
McGlinchey is actually my second-ranked tackle behind Connor Williams. Both are good players. I love McGlinchey. I think he's a guy that's ready-made to step into the NFL and succeed right now. I think he's more of a right tackle as opposed to a left tackle because he does struggle with some speed, and you really don't want that type of tackle on the blind side of your quarterback. But if the Chargers were to pick him, I think it would be a good pick because now they're starting to build a very solid offensive line with Russell Okung at left tackle. They selected Forrest Lamp and Dan Feeney last year as well. So, and you add McGlinchey into the mix with those guys, they have a very good young and ascending offensive line.
And he was the first tackle off our board, right?
Yes.
Okay. Do you foresee that happening in the draft itself? I know obviously that's how it shook out here, but
it was supposed to be Orlando Brown, but then he tanked the combine. But he was a lot of people's consensus OT1. And then I think it could be Connor Williams too. I don't think it's a situation like we've had in the past where it's definitely going to be Matt Khalil, the first one off the board. It's a lot more open to debate this year.
Seems like a good class for offensive linemen at least for tackles in the first round, and then for the interior throughout the draft. But I think there are just a lot of quarterback needy players, and it might push some of those guys down, which would be great for Vikings fans because that's after free agency probably means number 1, 2, and 3 on our board. So
yeah. Sean, you're up next with the Seahawks.
Yeah, I've got the Seattle Seahawks, number 18. I had a couple options here. I really think they could target a cornerback to replace Richard Sherman, but for a number of years, the biggest issue with Seattle has been their offensive line. And they really have nobody at guard now with Luke Joeckel being a free agent. They got Brian Schottenheimer now replacing Darrell Bevel as the offensive coordinator, and I've been in love with Will Hernandez, the guard from UTEP for a long time, and running that Air Coryell system that Schottenheimer likes to run. I think he's a guy you can depend on alone by himself, and so I think that's a really good fit for the Seahawks at 18.
Well, as a
Got a little
Vikings
run on
fan,
the
I'm
logo.
sad about this because I thought he would maybe fall to us. I was really hoping he would at least. Real good player, absolutely ridiculously strong. So I think that's a good pick. The Seahawks definitely need interior line help. But,
Who
too bad for
was it?
Vikings
Sorry,
fans.
I misheard. I cut out for a second.
Will Hernandez.
Oh, okay.
And they draft Ethan Pocic, or I don't know how to pronounce his name, Pocic, last
Posick,
year.
I think.
Pocic. So I think those two they obviously have Justin Britt as well, but I think between Will Hernandez and Pocic, they can develop together and start, a young offensive, or young core for that offensive line.
Seattle's at a bit of a crossroads right now because their defense just fell apart before their eyes. They are no longer the Seattle team that we have come to know over the last 5 years. So I think this is a great opportunity for them to kind of decide to go a different direction and build around Russell Wilson rather than building around a defense.
Yes.
So I think going offensive line is really interesting. You kind of just expect them to do what you said and draft a corner to replace Sherman because that's their biggest departure. But I think throwing resources at defense right now as it's falling apart like this, I don't know. It seems like you should build around the assets you have, not build around the assets you had. So I really like going offensive line here and just let Russell Wilson be Russell Wilson. He's one of the most valuable assets in the entire league.
Definitely. Yeah. Legion of Boom is no more. It seems like. And as long as Billy Price stays on the board till the end, I'll be happy. Brad.
Yes, sir.
You are up with the...
Yes, I am. And I have the Dallas Cowboys right here. The Cowboys, I actually think, despite having a little bit of a down year last year from obviously their 1 seed 13-3 season in 2016, I think they're poised for a rebound this year. I think they'll do really well. They can definitely challenge the Eagles for that NFC East title at the very least. But to do that, I think they're really going to have to work on their defense. I do like their edge rushers. I think they got DeMarcus Lawrence. He's a very, very good player. But they definitely need to work on their run defense. And that's why I'm going to go with Daron Payne, defensive tackle from Alabama. This guy's just a beast. Anyone who watched college football semifinals would know how much of an impact he can make in big games. He's a good guy, good character, someone that would really fit in well on the Cowboys, I think. And he would be a great addition to that team.
This one I actually have some issue with.
Really?
I think the Cowboys have some more pressing needs because at defensive tackle they got David Irving and Malik Collins, who actually really turned it on last year and performed pretty well as a defensive group. I don't know. I have a hard time seeing the Cowboys pass on somebody like Denzel Ward or Jair Alexander if they make it past the Seahawks when they lost Richard Sherman.
That's the thing. I do actually like the Cowboys' young corners, and I think David Irving, they could definitely push outside to the edge, and he would perform well there. Malik Collins and David Irving are both good players. I think just having this big behemoth in there would be a really good addition for them, though.
Where do you line up on that argument, Luke or JR or Sean?
Go ahead, JR.
Yeah, I love the Derwin Payne pick. The Cowboys need some help up the middle. They have Malik Collins there already, but we all know the weakness of their defense is right up the middle. They spent a first-round pick in Takk McKinley last year, so they need to keep investing in that defensive line, especially after the whole Randy Gregory fiasco. So they're a bit thin up the middle of the defense, and I think Derwin Payne gives them a really good run defender up the middle.
It was Taco Charlton for the Cowboys.
Say Takk McKinley?
Taco Charlton.
I meant Taco Charlton.
Yeah.
JR, you are staying in the division.
Got the Lions.
Detroit.
They need some help up the middle as well. They lost Haloti Ngata to the Eagles this offseason. But there really isn't a pick or a guy on the board that I think is worth investing right now. I would say Maurice Hurst, but we all know his heart condition and how scary that situation is. We don't want it to end up being a Nick Fairley type of situation. So I'm going to go Harold Landry right here. They need some help off the edge. Ziggy Ansah is playing on the franchise tag, and we're not sure if he's going to be there in 2019. So why not go ahead and draft his replacement in Harold Landry?
I didn't realize we gave JR every NFC North opponent.
Oh, yeah, man. I take bribes, just so you know. And how do you guys foresee with their new head coach coming out of Belichick's family of coaches kind of changing the way that they do things? Do you think they'll be obviously a more defensive-minded team?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that the Patriots with Bill Belichick always invested more in the secondary than in their pass rushers. They always kind of found ways to go bargain bin at pass rusher, as well as doing stuff like getting rid of Chandler Jones or Jamie Collins and kind of selling high on those guys, which is a really interesting team-building strategy. So I definitely like Harold Landry, especially this late in the draft. I think that'd be a great pick for the Lions. I wonder if they would actually take a pass rusher with Matt Patricia's first pick in Detroit. But I agree. I mean, they need help getting pressure on the quarterback, and their secondary right now is pretty well built. So that would be a really good way to make Detroit's defense work a little bit better than it has in the past. Right now, they have not been able to support Matt Stafford in the way that they have. In a way that other teams have been able to support their franchise quarterbacks on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, I absolutely love the Harold Landry pick. I think talent-wise, he could be right up there with Marcus Davenport or Tremaine Edmonds. But the only other one that I could see that would be interesting would be Darius Geis. But I think that'd be putting a little too many bodies in the running back room there. So, yeah, I'm definitely all in with the Harold Landry pick. I think they'd be getting quite a steal at pick 20 there.
Luke, you're up next with the Bengals.
Yes, the Cincinnati Bengals, who traded down with the Bills to get this pick down here. I am so tempted by Jaire Alexander. I think he's way better than the 21st best player in the draft. But the Bengals have had their team completely taken apart by their offensive line in the last couple of years since they lost Whitworth and Zeitler and kind of the squad that really built that 2015 team, which was really the last time the Bengals were relevant, let alone good. So I'm going to take Isaiah Wynn from Georgia. He can play a number of different positions along the line. Right now, I think they have the biggest, most glaring need at center. So he could start there, but depending on what other additions you get over the next couple of years, he can move around and basically just be like a piece to start rebuilding that offensive line and maybe hope you can give Andy Dalton a little help. Andy Dalton thrived with an unbelievable supporting cast in 2015, and I think you need to try to replicate that.
Nick, what are your thoughts on Luke's pick or the Bengals as a concept?
I think it's great. Cincinnati needs a lot of help on the offensive line, and I think that's double so because Andy Dalton is a quarterback who needs good protection to play well. So I think Wynn's a great pick. I think he's going to be plug and play and do very well.
Where's he at on your breakdown, Mr. Jordan Reid?
He's actually my draft crush this year. He's the number 12 player overall on my big board. You talk about a guy that can play tackle or guard. He's never played center before, but I'm sure he will be able to transition to it as long as he's able to snap the ball consistently. Very light feet. Built like a refrigerator. That's what I like to call it. Big barrelly frame. Very strong. Very good anchor. I think he's the guy that's a plug-and-play offensive lineman, as Nick alluded to.
JR, for people who may not be familiar, who are some of your draft crushes of the past?
Last year, who was my draft crush last year? Oh, man.
It was Lamp, right?
Yeah, it was Lamp. I watched so many guys. All of them run together, but some of them have been from years past. Teddy was one of them. Marcus Peters was probably my biggest draft crush ever. And Kareem Hunt was another one of my draft crushes last year. So I'm on a good streak right now. Hopefully things keep going.
Who's up next? I think it's the Bills and Mike, right?
That's correct. Looking at the Bills roster, they actually have a pretty solid roster. The biggest glaring hole is obviously quarterback now, especially with how this draft has panned out. I mean, there's no way, but it would be extremely stupid of them to take Mason Rudolph here, who would be the next best quarterback. So I would say we're looking at inside offensive line. They need a center bad with Eric Wood retiring. I'd say they need a quarterback. Vontae Davis was brought in, but they lost EJ Gaines, and I don't believe Vontae Davis is really going to be anything that he used to be. So right now I'm really deciding between Jair Alexander and I actually really like James Daniels at center as a fit for them. They like to run that zone blocking scheme, and he really tore it up in the shuttle drills. So yeah, I'm gonna go with James Daniels.
Who wants to?
It's really interesting that you went there instead of Billy Price.
I love Billy Price. I really think that torn pec is gonna knock him down, possibly into the second round.
That's incredible because it's only partially torn. The idea is that he'll be ready by training camp.
That's the idea.
He misses like a game or two thing. Maybe comes along a little slower.
I think it's just going to scare people away a little too much, and James Daniels really tore it up at the combine. He's going to be a great fit in a zone blocking scheme where they need the center out and moving.
I definitely agree with that. Teams have about 6 weeks to overthink it.
Yeah, I would love to look at a piece historically where like minor injuries or injuries that aren't career ending or changing, how they've ended up impacting teams not taking players that ended up panning out. Because everyone's looking for an angle and they tend to overanalyze things, as you alluded to, Luke. But if the Vikings can benefit from it, I'll take it. Billy Price all the way. And since I'm not really participating, I just want to put out there that I was the biggest hashtag anyone but Treadwell guy a couple years ago, and so I'm really proud of that. So I'm just going to keep putting that out there.
While we're talking Vikings, a question for the class: how are we feeling right now as Vikings fans with the way this draft? If this is the way the draft played out, I see Billy Price, and I'd be excited to see if he falls. I'd be excited to see Connor Williams fall. Jair Alexander is falling. That's awesome. How do we feel?
Pretty good.
I'm pretty lukewarm on it.
You got McClinchy and Will Hernandez that are two guys that would be nice, but they were taken
McClinchy
earlier.
got taken. I couldn't find him on the board to delete him, but McClinchy did get taken.
Yep. 17 to the Chargers.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I misunderstood what you were saying.
Yeah, I mean, is this... I guess it depends on individually what you guys want, but does this seem to be the consensus in regards to how many guards are going to be taken at this point? Is that a lot?
I think there's a lot of good guards, so it could definitely happen.
They tend to be a little undervalued in the draft, too. We might be valuing them higher than teams actually will.
That's what I was thinking.
Well, that was what it was with Elfline last year, is everybody had him as late first, possibly early second talent, but he fell all the way to us in the third.
Yeah, that's usually how it goes. Even last year, Taylor Moton, Dan Feeney, Elfline, and a host of other guys. Deion Dawkins is another guy. They fell to the second and third round. So fans usually tend to overvalue guards and they end up going in the later rounds.
Do you guys think more or less trades would benefit the Vikings with Spielman's history and getting in there? Do you think having a lot of movement, especially in the higher ends of the draft, might burn some teams out or end up making things so he can't make those moves?
I don't think the Vikings are targeting the kind of players that people trade up for. So, if somebody's going to do like what the Cardinals have done here and trade up for a quarterback, it doesn't seem like the Vikings are going to be interested in that, which is good. It means that that's more players the Vikings maybe aren't interested in that are going before them. It means more players on their board will be remaining when it gets to them.
Everybody outside of the top 8 in this draft, other than quarterback needy teams, are going to absolutely love this draft because all of those quarterbacks are just going to keep pushing down quality players for teams that need other positions.
Mm. Nick, it's back to you. The Rams?
Yeah, that's right. And I think edge makes the most sense here with Robert Quinn leaving. But I am going to do something a little out of left field, and I am going to draft Dallas Goedert from South Dakota State.
Hey,
I think.
Wow.
I think Les Snead loves swinging for the fences, as he's shown this year. And this is a guy I think that Sean McVay would just love to get this kind of movable chess piece, the matchups you could exploit. Split him out wide, have him go downfield, make him your new deep threat, make him work underneath. I think he could be it's a little, there's a lot of concerns there as a small school tight end, but I think there's a pretty big upside, and I think this is the kind of player that McVay would make the most out of. So curious what you guys think about that one, but I think he could be a very big weapon for them. And with them losing Watkins, I think it makes more sense to give Goff more weapons.
Yeah, I actually like it. And, you pair him up with a guy like Tyler Higbee, who had a productive year for him last year as well. So I like the Goddard pick, and it's just giving Goff more weapons.
I absolutely love Dallas Goedert. I love his measurables. I love his tape. The only issue I have with that is, do you really think they double up on tight end after picking Gerald Everett last year?
Well, I think they still would go for Goddard. I think having both Goddard and Everett would give you a lot of really interesting sets, maybe flashbacks to the Patriot, Gronk, and Hernandez days. I think Goddard would be a really good pick for the Rams, actually. Give Goff another weapon and, just really spread that defense out.
I think it'd be a great pick. I just, a lot of teams shy away from doubling down like that.
I think a lot of these young offensive minds are starting to view. I'm starting to hear the phrase position the ball be thrown around, and I think guys like McVay or like Kyle Shanahan are starting to understand that just because they are all labeled as tight ends doesn't mean that you can't put all these weapons on the field at the same time and make a cool offense out of it. If you have Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, Everett, and Goddard all on the field together with Goff throwing into it in the McVay offense, I think he'd be salivating.
And I think Goddard's enough of a receiving threat that you could, come out with 2 tight ends, and if they match you up in base, then just split Goddard out wide and see what they do. And then that gives Goff a pre-snap read, and then you're rolling.
Sean, you're up with the Panthers.
All right, so 24th pick, Carolina Panthers. I'm going to run to the podium and take Jair Alexander, who is still available. The Panthers traded cornerback Daryl Worley, who's kind of one of their young corners, for Torrey Smith. So I feel like he's a great pick for them. Obviously, best available, so win-win. Taking Jair Alexander, number 24.
Who wants to? Brad or Mike?
That's great value where you're getting him. I think the Panthers need another cornerback. They haven't really had a shutdown guy since Josh Norman left. And obviously, Jair Alexander is a very good one coming out of Louisville. And I think he'd be a great addition for the Panthers. They do a lot of zone. And I think Jair Alexander can do that. But I think he can also do a lot of lockdown man. So, good pick.
Yeah, if I was them, I'd be deciding between Jair Alexander and Denzel Ward, and yeah, I got Alexander over Ward, so I'd just go BPA in there.
Is that how you see it too, Luke or JR?
Yeah, I'd be completely fine with that. I don't know how Denzel Ward has slipped this far in the draft, but it is what it is.
I was gonna say he's got to be coming up soon. You'd think. That could be Brad with the Titans.
It could be, but I actually really do like the Titans corners now. They just got Malcolm Butler, I believe, and they got Logan Ryan there. They got that guy from USC they picked last year.
Adoree Jackson.
Adoree Jackson. So I think they're pretty set at cornerback right now, and they obviously have a very good young safety in Kevin Byard. I'm going to go defense, but I'm going to go a different part of the defense. I'm going to take a guy I really like, and that's Taven Bryan out of Florida. Very disruptive defensive tackle. He's a little bit undersized, which makes me think they might move him outside a little bit, which is good. They just need someone who can create pressure, and that's why I think he'd be a really good fit. A lot of people mocked him to the Vikings, obviously, before the Sheldon Richardson acquisition, but I think he could be a really good young piece for the Titans.
What do you think, Luke?
He's becoming a little bit of a polarizing figure on draft Twitter because I think he's a little raw, but he's such an athlete that I think that taking guys like that in the first round is totally acceptable, and hope that you can mold them and turn. He's an upside pick, and in the late part of the first round, upside picks are totally fine risks to take.
Yeah, the Titans are in a position, especially at this pick, that they can just go best pick available, whoever they really want. Taven Bryan would be a great pick. I could see them taking Rashaan Evans since they lost Avery Williamson. They could go inside O-line if they were high on Billy Price. There's a ton of picks the Titans make, and Taven Bryan definitely would not be the worst one.
Back to JR. Going outside the division, I think maybe Luke might have done some shenanigans on the big board. Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah, so they're in an interesting spot. They need a defensive tackle, and they need help at guard as well. They did end up signing an old friend of the Vikings in Brandon Fusco, so he's pretty much entrenched as their starting guard. So I think they need a defensive tackle right here. So I'm going to take the risk, and I'm going to go ahead and draft Maurice Hurst here. He fits the mold of exactly what they want in the defensive tackle. He is that penetrating three technique that gets up the field, and him and Dan Quinn's defense would be a fantastic fit.
What do you think, Nick?
I love it. I think it's a great fit. I think it's worth the risk at this point. He's just so explosive, so quick to shoot the gap, and that does a lot of things. I mean, we're going to see it with getting Sheldon Richardson, what that kind of under tackle does for your pass rushing, because it collapses the pocket so much from the interior, which just sets up the rest of the defense to succeed. So I think it fills a need. I think it's great value, phenomenal value. I mean, this is a guy I think Pro Football Focus has him as their number 3 guy on their board. So,
wow. Lots of value there. Sean, if you or Luke, before we get into Luke's pick
with the Saints. Yeah, I mean, he's been comped a lot to Sharif Floyd before Sharif Floyd had that botched surgery. He's got that explosive first step, and he's super disruptive as a 3-technique pass rusher. And I would think that 3-technique pass rusher is actually one of the more important positions out there. Atlanta just basically had a grab bag of their defensive line with Adrian Claiborne going away and losing Dontari Poe. So they definitely need help on the inside. So I think the fact that they got Maurice Hurst, I'd be really happy if I were a Falcons fan. He and Tack are going to eat.
Well, getting into your pick with the Saints.
Yeah, I'm kind of torn here because Denzel Ward has fallen into my lap, and pairing him next to Marshawn Lattimore is something. But I think they also need a safety to replace Kenny Vaccaro, who did not pan out for them and who they let walk. And I'm looking at Ronnie Harrison from Alabama, and I'm very torn. I think in this case, when you're torn between, wow, this really good player fell to me and this player fills a need, I tend to want to take the better player because after all, you're drafting for the future. You're not just drafting for this year. It's a much better plan to have these two crazy corners, and then that makes a safety's job easier, and therefore makes that an easier spot to fill. And I don't think I can possibly pass up on Denzel Ward right now, so I'm going to take Denzel Ward out of Ohio State.
Nicely done. Yeah, that's something we don't actually want to see happen. As
they'd be able to handle Diggs and Thielen.
There you go. No more Miracle in Minneapolis.
Denzel Ward falling to the Vikings would be a dream come true. That'd be plug-and-play slot corner right there.
Let's talk about him a little bit more, just both in terms of Luke's pick, but just I guess the best way to start out would be JR, if you want to kind of talk about where he's at on your board, position-wise and just in general, and what you like about him.
I love him. I'm a big fan of Denzel Ward. He's my CB2 after Jair Alexander. Your typical press man type of corner. A bit smaller. He's only about 5'10", 195 pounds, but he plays like he's 6'2". That's the type. That's how hard he competes. Loves tackling. You can tell he loves playing the game. In my write-up of him, he's like a gnat that you're always swatting away from your face. And that's just the type of coverage that he plays with. And I'm just a fantastic fan. I'm a big fan of him, and I think he's a fantastic player.
It sounds a lot like Antoine Winfield.
Yeah, very similar players.
Same school, too. Do you think where do you realistically think he's going to go?
I wouldn't be shocked if he goes 4 to the Browns, honestly.
Okay.
I think he can go that high, and I think you're going to start to see more steam of him going 4th overall to the Browns. I think he's that good.
Teams do tend to overvalue height when it comes to cornerbacks. You know, we've seen a lot of corners come in below and be short but still successful. You know, I think of Mackenzie Alexander, who I think would be a lot better on the outside as well. But they kind of, look, you're short, you're a slot corner. So I would hope that whoever does draft him doesn't just relegate him to only being like a nickel corner or only covering, short slot routes, because I do think he can be successful on the outside. He's a good corner, and his height hasn't stopped him in the past. And it's not like he went to some small school with, scrub competition.
Big Ten. Speaking of a team that has a lot of Big Ten players, the Steelers are up with Mike?
Yeah, I heard Luke talking about Ronnie Harrison. I was hoping he would take him to make my pick a little easier here. I'd say the biggest holes that the Steelers are looking at right now is at safety and a middle linebacker. So right now I'm really looking at Ronnie Harrison or Rashaan Evans, both Alabama boys here. They really need someone to pair up with Sean Davis in the back, especially with Mitchell leaving. And, well, we all know with Shazier, they're got a huge hole at middle linebacker. I'm going to go with Rashaan Evans just because I feel like the impact of a good, solid middle linebacker is a bigger impact than that of a second safety.
Be really interesting to see how that how Ryan Shazier comes back, and if he does come back, that'll be a really fun pairing. And if not, you've replaced him.
Well, I mean, they have Vince Williams as their second middle linebacker, who's solid, but we really saw the issues turn out of that Steelers defense when Shazier went down.
Yeah, they definitely took a step back, and Fournette was all over him.
Shazier was he's one of those crazy players. I mean, he was basically a safety playing linebacker with the speed he had.
Yeah, what do you think about that, JR or Nick, too, if you want to hop in? Or Sean?
Looks like we just lost JR.
Oh. Well, he'll join back, and I don't think he has a pick. Who's up next? Nick with the Jags. I believe, yeah.
Still weird to see the Jags drafting there.
Yeah,
it feels like they traded.
Definitely.
I can see the Jags doing a couple different. I don't know. Am I picking as if I'm the GM or what I'm predicting them to do?
Pick what you think they should do, I would say.
Okay, then I'm drafting a QB. I'm taking Mason Rudolph. I do not believe in Blake Bortles. I'm not crazy high on Mason Rudolph. I think he's got some. You're concerned about his upside there, but I think he's a smart QB. I think he throws with great anticipation, and I think he could be a day one starter for the Jags. I'm just Bortles. I don't want to. I feel like sometimes people rag on him so much that he becomes underrated, but he's just not who I would want as the future for my franchise. And I think if I can make it to the championship game with that kind of quarterbacking, I think if you have a chance to upgrade with your first round pick, then you definitely do.
Yeah, the way they extended Bortles, I don't think shows too much faith in them being a franchise guy. I think it shows more regret about the fifth-year option and just trying to spread that out and make it hurt a little less. I think the Jags would be remiss not to get a backup plan if they can't make Blake Bortles really turn out. He definitely bounced back from 2016. I mean, 2016 was a laughing stock of a year, but he's still. If I'm the Jags, I just can't imagine that they're comfortable with Blake Bortles, especially after they've gone back and watched all the 2017 season and watched him, missing screens in that playoff game against the Bills. I really agree that's what they should do, and I guess I hope that they can see beyond the hubris of, well, we drafted this guy third overall, so he has to be the guy, and we just extended him.
Yeah, what could you see them doing outside of that too? I mean,
they have quite a few options that they can pick outside of him. They really need a pass-catching tight end, so somebody like Mike Gesicki or Mark Andrews would be good. They could probably, they could probably go with a receiver like a James Washington or a Cortland Sutton. I don't know how much faith they have in all their undrafted guys that they brought into the playoffs, but
yeah, we haven't
get behind Mason Rudolph.
Have we had a receiver?
We had Calvin Ridley.
Just Ridley.
Yeah, so there's a few guys floating out there.
I do think it could shake out that way. This is not a good wide receiver class, so I could definitely see Ridley being the only first-round wideout going.
So let's just skip the Vikings. and good night.
Who cares about that pick?
They forgot to draft again.
Mike Tice randomly shows up. Sean, man of the hour.
Prepare to be heavily criticized.
I don't think it's any surprise who I'm going to take here.
Yeah, I think I have an idea too.
With the 30th pick, 2018 NFL Draft, the Vikings select Billy Price.
Yay!
And there it is.
I mean, you got to protect your franchise quarterback, Kirk Cousins. You pair him next to former Buckeye at Elfline, right next to him on the offensive line. He's just a perfect fit for Minnesota, and if he falls this far, I think it's a dream scenario for the Vikings.
Yeah, and you wonder how like we talked about, that injury is going to impact his position. And we've talked about this on the Purple Journal podcast a couple times. I believe with JR too. I don't know if he's back or not. But whether the Vikings at this point might trade down and then hope to get Billy Price and someone else earlier in the second round. I mean, do you think that if he does fall to, I mean, how's that shaking? How's he looking in regards to that? I mean, is he someone that they should just snag at their position and not worry about trading down, or do you think that they'd have the luxury to do that?
I don't know how you guys feel, but I'm taking him at 30. I think somebody else would take the chance on him if the Vikings don't at that spot.
I think the only
No, that's
guy
a good pick.
The only guy I could have that's still on the board here is Connor Williams has fallen. And I do know that the Vikings are open to the idea of moving Rimmers to guard. So you have Rimmers at guard and then Williams. I know, I don't like it either.
He's so much better at tackle. Why would you move him inside?
I agree, but it seems to be something that they really, really want to do, and they seem to be really happy with him at guard, and it's something that they've whispered about. But I think if you have a guy like Connor Williams, who is JR, he's your OT1, right? I mean, that's a great pick and probably a more valuable one, just because tackles are more valuable than guards. That's the only other option I see here.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, some people are saying maybe Williams can transition into playing guard, but he has that tackle flexibility as well, which is always a plus. An offensive lineman has that versatility skill set.
And I think, Luke, it was you on the show that said that the type of pressure that Cousins struggles with is more the pressure from the outside, from the defensive ends, not so much the interior pressure. Is that,
in my opinion, the Kirk Cousins pressure issue is caused most by an internal clock issue and like a kind of pocket presence, just feeling the pressure coming. He doesn't feel it in time. So pressure tends to be a little harder to feel than like interior pressure that's coming right at you, especially blindside edge pressure. So, Riley Reiff will be a very important piece, and you have to hope that he continues to play well. I also think, the Vikings have always shown a philosophy of get the best 5 players out there. So if they do take Connor Williams, they would probably try Remmers at guard, try Williams at guard, and see which one of those they like better. I don't think they would be like making that choice immediately on draft day. And I think it's the same with like Billy Price too. They might try him at center and see if he's better at center, and then move Elflein to guard. They might try all kinds of weird crap.
Yeah, and what else? We can kind of delve into maybe the first couple picks too. And I know we'll probably revisit this as maybe once or twice more before the draft. I know we've talked about getting some help at tight end. Not saying that we would take a tight end with the first overall pick, but let's say they trade down and there's somebody they really like in the second or third round. Who do you guys like at that position, or other positions like replacing maybe the role that Jet had on the team?
Well, tight end, it would be, Dallas Goedert would be the dream. Gesicki is interesting with the combine he put up. Mark Andrews, you kind of know what you're going to get. Frank Ragnow would be cool. They would have to be really high on him to pick him at 30, though, because he's more of a second-round talent.
Okay.
I like Ragnow. I think he's a good player. And I agree with you on Goddard. I think he would be a really good addition to the Vikings. People think, we have a tight end, we don't need to pick a tight end. Well, it's not ever a bad idea to have 2 really good receiving tight ends, and we have Morgan, who's obviously more of a blocker, but I think it would be nice.
Luke talked about this a little bit too on this week's podcast, but I guess the best way to put it, to flesh this out a little bit, is some of the stuff you looked at in regards to DeFilippo's time in Cleveland. Like, what do you see, like, you don't need to go into it too much, but
There's a lot of similarities between what DiFilippo did in Cleveland and some of the play designs that Kirk Cousins thrived with under McVay when McVay was in Washington. And they used a lot of tight ends, basically creating a mismatch and then getting that mismatch onto the sideline where Kirk Cousins can actually make that throw pretty well.
It also helps that the Redskins' two best receivers were Vernon Davis and Jordan Reed as well.
Right. They had two very good receiving tight ends, which is the effect that you're trying to replicate. So if you're John DiFilippo, you could definitely use a second receiving tight end, and you probably want somebody a little faster than David Morgan.
Oh, probably want someone a little faster than Rudolph as well.
True.
Any thoughts on guys to fill in for McKinnon?
I like Mark
this
Walton.
early.
Like later rounds, Mark Walton.
Yeah,
I think he's a sleeper.
not here.
Yeah, Walton's a good option. My favorite one is John Kelly from Tennessee. He's not as explosive as McKinnon was, but he's built exactly the same and has a very similar type of skill set. And I think John Kelly could be a very good option as that RB3 in the rotation behind Cook and Latavius Murray.
Brad, you were a Colorado State guy, right?
Yeah.
I'm real high on Dalen Dawkins in the 6th or 7th round.
You should be.
I think he's undersized, but he's a great receiver. He runs hard. I think he could end up being a great role player throughout his career.
Yeah, I think so too. He's real fast when you watch him in person. Just blows down the sideline.
Odds are they'll just end up trading down, but that's the fear anyway. I was thinking of renting the movie theater that we rented for the Saints game for the draft. And I was trying to think of whether to do it Friday and with the risk of not taking anybody, or doing it on Saturday with all those juicy picks. Do you guys think they're gonna? God, it's such a worthless question because it's so much yet to be determined. But you guys thinking we're gonna see some shenanigans from Spielman?
If someone
Depends
really
on who's
likes
there.
Mason Rudolph and he's not taken, I could see someone taking our pick to jump ahead of the Patriots because he's been mocked there before.
That'd be awesome.
I think in general this draft, especially the first round, is going to be very trade heavy.
Yeah.
I can see 5 to 7 trades happening in the first round alone.
Wow.
Should we wrap this up? Get the
Yeah,
last
let's
two
get
picks?
there. Brad.
Yeah, I'm gonna make this nice
Pass.
and quick. One of my top players has fallen to me at the Patriots at a position of need. Connor Williams, OT from Texas. Nate Solder just moved on. They need a new guy. This is their guy. He will be a very solid pro, and I don't think there's any question that that's a really good pick here.
I think we
Yeah,
should spend a
Connor-
good hour on it.
if Connor drops to the Patriots, there's literally no way they don't take him after losing Solder. It works out way too perfectly.
Then let's hop right into the bane of our existence, both in terms of the Eagles and JR.
Yeah, so this pick is more of a BPA pick as opposed to a need. They have a need at tackle because we don't know what Jason Peters is going to be coming off an injury. And Lane Johnson really is their only other reliable option. I don't know how to pronounce the other guy's name. I call him Big V, but he stepped in and did a really good job for him down the stretch at tackle. So there really isn't a tackle worth taking at this point. So I'm going to go with Darius Geis with this pick. I think adding him to the backfield with Jay Ajayi and Corey Clement will continue that committee that they like to use, and Geis falling to them at this point will be a steal.
Awesome. Has anyone got any thoughts on that before we?
That's a good one. I've seen him mocked there before, and I think that if he is there, they will be hard-pressed not to take him. They just lost Blunt, so having a guy like Geis on the team would be a really good addition.
He's definitely better than the 32nd player in this draft. So in in that regard, you're definitely getting good value here.
So with the fact that you guys are kind of covering the draft now and through the next few weeks up until the draft, is there any articles you guys wanted to plug or kind of let people know what you're doing in that regard? Starting with JR. We can go JR, Nick, Luke, Brad, then Mike.
Yeah, so the biggest thing that I'm doing right now is just putting the finishing touches on my final draft board. I'm actually releasing my actual draft board this year, and I'll release it on April 2nd. It'll include over 100 prospects and my personal scouting reports on each and every one of them, and I'll include my top 100 big board in that spreadsheet as well. And again, that'll come out April 2nd.
And that's going to be on Climbing the Pocket?
Yeah, I'm going to put it on Climbing the Pocket, and I'll post the link on my page as well, my Twitter page.
Okay. And we can put up a reference to that on VikingsTerritory as well. And Nick, you've written for purplePTSD a couple times, but you're kind of a newer fixture to the VikingsTerritory side of things, and so it doesn't need to necessarily be draft oriented. If you kind of want to let people know the kind of stuff you're doing, stuff you've done, kind of your.
Yeah, no, probably the biggest piece I did for PTSD was that Harrison Smith piece. Singing his praises, letting the world know why he's one of the best players in football, period.
Yeah.
And then VikingsTerritory, I got that Kirk Cousins piece. I've been thinking since I got so excited when we signed Sheldon Richardson about doing a quick breakdown of what that means for the defense, what a 3-technique under tackle means for Mike Zimmer, what it means for the rest of the defense. I think that's just such a perfect fit and such a big upgrade for the team. So I'm really stoked about that signing. So I thought about diving back into his tape and looking at what we're getting. But no guarantees that that's going to come anytime soon. So.
And do you have people follow you on like Twitter and stuff for football?
Yeah, I started tweeting like 2 months ago, but I got, I don't know, like 700 followers, I think. So.
What's your handle?
At Nicholas J. Olson.
Okay. And I'll link all these in the piece for this. So if someone's watching or listening to this, they'll be able to follow each writer and everything too. And obviously people that are listening to this are familiar with Luke Braun as one of the founding fathers of this whole enterprise we got going on the Mount Rushmore. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but
I don't either. Yeah, I have. You can check out my Twitter where I'll be doing a little bit more breakdown stuff, like what I did with the Kirk Cousins DeFilippo thing. You can follow me at Luke Braun NFL. I will probably later today actually be tweeting a little bit about Danielle Hunter with some film, because I think people are mischaracterizing his upcoming season as a prove-it year, where I think he's already proven himself. So I'm going to make that case on Twitter, and you can follow me there for all my other thoughts. I'm not sure what the next thing I'm going to write is. It'll probably be something about the draft, but I don't know yet.
Awesome. Brad?
Yeah, so one thing that I'm going to be looking to do in these upcoming weeks is I will be taking a look at a lot of the guys in this draft class that you may not have heard of. They're probably guys that'll go maybe 4th, 5th, 6th kind of rounds, and just guys that the Vikings might look at as kind of role players, maybe special team guys, but would fit really well on the team. Maybe find, our next Jaron Curse, someone who can come in and contribute in a unique way. I'm just going to do a lot of those kind of profiles, so stay tuned for all that, and it should be a really fun time.
Awesome. And do you have a Twitter you want people to follow, or?
I do not as of now, but I will let you know.
Awesome. And that leaves us last and not least with Mr. Mike.
Yeah, this next week I'm going to be putting together my full Vikings 7-round mock. After that, I'm going to try to find the motivation and most importantly time to do a full 7-round mock draft.
Mm.
That's a slog. I've only done it once before, and I don't know how much interest I actually have in doing it again. Otherwise, yeah, I'm kind of on the boat with Brad there. I like looking at the mid to late round guys. We can find any kind of diamonds in the rough. Other than that, yeah, you can follow me at Mike Dory1. You can come be my like 13th follower or something and watch my hilariously bad quarterback takes take place.
Like it, man. And they can find your guys' stuff, Brad's stuff too, on purplePTSD, along with a lot of my stuff. In regards to Twitter, I post everything through purplePTSD. Obviously, I will be on WCCO radio tomorrow at 4:35 in the afternoon on the Sports Tonight show. And I've never been as insecure as I am after listening to how much you guys know about everything football and going on that show and answering a few questions. But it'll be amazing exposure for both the sites, and it's a way for us to kind of test the waters a little bit in regards to bringing a lot of this content to a wider audience through WCCO radio. So,
Sean, did you have anything to plug, or did I miss that?
Yeah, I skipped them, didn't I?
Oh, it's all good. These guys are obviously the draft experts. I read on the news and I kind of just roll with the punches here. So I just stay tuned to Vikings Territory. I've actually got a couple pieces coming out that are not related to the draft. So yeah, visit Vikings Territory. We got some good stuff coming.
Yeah, and Sean is the MVP for sure, despite the fact that I forgot to mention him. But yeah, he writes multiple times a day over on Vikings Territory. He's basically Vikings Territory by himself at this point. So check out what he's doing. And thanks for listening. I think we're going to give us another crack before the draft comes up at the end of April, when stuff becomes a little bit more locked in. But we appreciate you for watching and for listening, and check us out on the Purple Journal podcast every Thursday. I will have a link up to my radio interview tomorrow, assuming all goes well. And this has been the first ever purplePTSD Vikings Territory mock draft. So thanks for listening, and skol. Alright, good stuff, fellas.
Sweet.
Now I just have to figure out how to get this on YouTube, and it should be up in like an hour. I'll send it out to everybody.
Cool.
I really appreciate everyone's time.
I'm going to take a screenshot and put it in the Slack of the mock draft.
Perfect.
The final result here.
Awesome.
Just get a nice zoom going. So, see you guys.
All right, thanks, guys.
Yeah, have a good one, guys.
All right, guys.
Stop recording.